Welcome to the African American Folklorist of the Month series. This series accompanies the website and the magazine along with our newly editioned digital special issues that we publish twice a year. Check out our last special issue, which was honoring and celebrating Hoodoo Month, curated by Hess Love. We're going to start our series with Larry Handy. I'm going to read his bio, but I was looking up his work and his music, and we had a really brief conversation, and I like where this brother is coming from. Yeah. He is a Folklife Poet who leads the award-winning poetry band Totem Maples. His fiction, nonfiction, and poetry appears in such journals as the Coachella Review, COG, Mosaic, Art and Literary Journal, Proximity, Quiddity, I would say Rivet. Now, this one I cannot pronounce. I believe it's French or Creole. Storylandia, Straightforward Poetry, and elsewhere. He holds an MFA in creative writing and writing for the performing arts from the University of California, Riverside, and a master's in library science from Emporia State University. His horror novelette Paper Cuts, 1,000 Papers, Cranes, was published by TWB Press. His essay, What to Do When Grandma Has Dementia, was nominated for a Pushcart Prize and was listed in the Best American Series under Notable Essays and Literary Nonfiction of 2016. When not writing, he is either practicing Chinese martial arts or running 26.2-mile marathons. Southern California is his home. And we have to start with the last two sentences. Brother Larry, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Like I told you, I am, as I said before, I am healthy. I am not wealthy, but I am wise.
I dig it. Well, I mean, I would say you there's a lot of wealth on your side. Health is wealth. 26.2 miles. I mean, I'm trying to get to a mile right now. And then Chinese martial arts and Southern California. There's a lot going on. And you did tell me you were preparing for a marathon, right?
Yeah. I was supposed to do my 18-mile run this morning, and we were actually supposed to do this interview earlier, and pushed it back. But the air quality is too bad, so I can't, So I just
from the fires.
Yeah. So downtown LA is affected, but so what is affected is the area where I'm at. I'm in the San Gabriel Valley. We're in the Pasadena area. We all share the same mountain, the San Gabriel Mountains, the Angeles National Forest. And so for all those who aren't familiar with California, we all know the Rose Parade, Rose Bowl, that area. And so I was raised in Monrovia, and now I work in Azusa, so it's all Route 66. This whole area. Yeah. So I was born down the street in San Dimas. So Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and that's San Dimas. I mean, it's all the same little areas, So it's all suburbs. And when you think of suburbs, you think of like the white suburbs. No. Compton is a suburb. It is.
To grapple with, right?
Yeah. So the thing is that I got friends over in Pasadena, Altadena area. So Altadena has had like and I know your platform is dedicated to the preservation of Black American folklore and traditions. Well, we've had a lot of Black people came out here, this area in the 60s with the Second Great Migration. My grandparents came out here in 62. I'm the first person in my family to be, say, fully integrated from preschool all up. My parents, it was junior high. My grandparents, they were in their 40s when segregation ended, and they died in their 80s. So half of their entire life. Yeah. So like all that, you know.
Right. So wait, let me ask you a question, because there's a lot to unpack right there, right? But before we get to that, 62 is a migration from where?
Mississippi.
Okay, so you're coming from, because now that's actually because I don't want to say usually, but I don't want to kind of paint a broad picture, but actually no, because so I'm having a conversation in my head. Sorry, because there's this idea that Louisiana, Mississippi go north, northeast, Midwest, and Alabama, Texas goes west, south, west, northwest. But yourself and Alvin Youngblood Hart are two examples of Black migration from Mississippi west.
Yes.
You know, so it was, you know, that was kind of interesting to me, because it's usually framed as the Mississippi, Louisiana area go northeast, and then the other area, I guess, closer to the west goes west. But you guys are breaking that framing. I love it.
Yeah. You know, so my mom's side, you know, Mississippi. Father's side is New Orleans, Louisiana, like Creole area. Now in LA, we've had like the whole artist colony, Lamert Park, and so like all those areas, like there was a great migration actually of like Black folks in Louisiana moving out that way. You know, brought jazz with it. You know, Charles Mingus and all of them. I don't with Mingus though, he was from Texas. I don't know Mingus, but like
I believe
a lot of people immigrated out there. You know, migrated out there. Yeah.
Okay, so the first of your genealogy of that area to fully integrate and experience your entire life in this area. And then at 15, you're introduced to a haiku.
Yes.
So now, from what was the cultural and traditional atmosphere prior to that? And then walk us through how that moment, I guess, launched you to here.
Being a folklife poet? You mean going from doing a haiku to like?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! I don't know how much we have, but I'm gonna. You can edit as much as you want. So the haiku thing came in class. I was 15 years old. I'm 47 now. You know, wouldn't have this gray hair if it wasn't for the pandemic. But 15, I had to do. It was just some class project. I had to write a haiku, you know, and so I went home and I did it. But then I was like, oh, I just felt poetry calling. You know, I felt like, oh, I want to keep doing this. And so I turned the project in, and then I started just doing that same thing over again, just at home, you know, after school, and just doing it and just writing in notebooks. I didn't know if it was poetry or not. I just kept working it. And then in high school, you know, we had a poetry club. That the following year, I ended up just joining it. And so we would meet at lunchtime, you know, and we would just read poems. I think it's like every Thursday, whatnot. And so I got real good at it, you know, just reading. Senior year of high school, which is the following year after that, the poet Yusef Kumunyaka. Are you familiar with him? Yeah, Yusef Kumunyaka.
Tell the audience, please.
Pardon?
I said, I am, but please tell the audience.
Oh, yeah. So Yusef Kumunyaka, he had won the Pulitzer Prize for a book called Neon Vernacular that year, like 95, I think it was. And one of the teachers knew him and invited him to my high school. This is Monrovia High. And he came and he gave a reading, and then he gave like a poetry workshop. And I was just enamored at how he read, because it was different than how we did it in school. So you used to Kumunyaka, African-American poet. He had spent some time in Australia. He kind of had like a little Australian accent almost, you know. But the way that he read, and he had served some time in Vietnam. He was a Vietnam vet, and so he had a lot of Vietnam themed poetry. and just poetry about music and just the Black experience, everything, with his Australian accent at the time, but he was just very, I don't know, eloquent and very theatrical in how he read. And he didn't memorize his poetry, he read from a book. And so I was like, whoa, this is a whole nother way of doing poetry. And then so I started like not mimicking, but just trying to like find my voice in that, And when I got to college, freshman year, I was just doing little readings. And then my bandmate, Matt Coleman, who's from Riverside, he was he's all into Louis Armstrong and a lot of jazz music. He had done something with like people doing readers theater, like Telltale Heart and whatnot. And he knew that I was doing poetry. And he's like, "Hey Larry, let me put some guitar behind your poetry." I was like, "No music. It takes away from the poem." And and then he just kept coming at me. "Come on, Larry, come on. I was like, "Okay, fine." And then I did it. And I was like, whoa. And that same feeling that I had when I, in high school, when I was doing that haiku, and I was like, I want to do more of this. I was like, you know what, let's keep doing this. And then, so this is around 97, April 24th, 1997, man. That was when we did our first show. And like, people in 97, like, okay, so spoken word was big in New York. You got the New York Poets Cafe, Saul Williams, all that. Over here in LA is so trendy. People still doing like rap, and so like maybe we had like underground rap, like Project Blow, Freestyle Fellowship. They're out that way, Leimert Park area. Right. So I didn't have like the rhythm or the beat, or like I wasn't rhyming. It was just freestyle, free verse, and it was more melody than it was, that. And then so we just kept building off of it, and we just started playing shows, and we were doing stuff on Sunset Boulevard, opening up for like bands, wow. And whether it be rock bands, whether it be rap groups, you name it, we were always the opening act because it's poetry music, So I just started after that. Then I started researching who else is doing this. And that's when I came across Gil Scott-Heron and the Last Poets and the Watts. That's right. I didn't even know who they were. I was just feeling it out. So it wasn't like I was inspired by these. I just took the literary tradition of Yusef Kumunyaka, and just like the self-taught what me and Matt was doing, and then later started researching that, and then just started doing it, and then I started educating folks on what poetry and music is, the predecessor of rap, and then I started reading more books about, African tribal traditions, Irish traditions, Viking, pre-Islamic Arabic traditions, how the poet was always with music. And then so I did my master's thesis on oral and performance poetry. And the title of it is When You Speak a Poem, the Air Becomes the Page. You know what I mean? Yes. Being an English major, we were so used to like analyzing poetry in written, and we forget that there's the whole oral tradition, And I started reading about ethnopoetics.
That was my next question.
Yeah, Jerome Rothenberg and all these folks I just started reading about. And like, see, the thing is, when I was in college, I was performing and whatnot, and a lot of my English professors were like, well, this is not literature. I mean, you have an act. It's poetry, but yeah, it's not literary, And so I was getting that. And I even got a little bit of it, like my MFA program a little bit. It was like, well, you're a stage poet, like as a person page. And I'm like, what? So that's why I made sure that when I did my master's thesis and my presentation, I came correct. I
have to ask you a question. I have to stop you for 1 second because you said that a couple of times, and that's really interesting. What is what a stage poet in opposed to what? What's a stage poet?
A page poet versus stage poet.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the thing is that none of these academics ever pointed me to folklore. They never said, hey, Larry, there is folk traditions here. Like, it was on my own. I came to folklore, I joined the American Folklore Society. And so the conference that we did last year in New Mexico, that was my first, was my second folklore conference. I went to the Western states prior.
Okay.
So, but that was being in Mexico was great. And so being around other folklorists, being around academics, smart people who are also creatives.
Right.
That right there is so important, because a lot of academics I knew, they were scholarly, but they weren't creating art. My MFA program, they were creators. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they weren't like all doctorates. They were all, they all had master's degrees. So it was here to find these people who dug down deep. And working in a library like I do, I love digging deep. And I create. So like I always was like trying to find my people. Like, what is it? And so ethnopoetics, so folklore. I was like, why didn't they just redirect me? They never redirected. And so it just goes to show like all these folklore programs are closing down in the United States.
Yeah,
changing their names. UCLA had a folklore program. Now it's called World Culture and Dance. Great title, but it's like,
right. It removes what was actually going on.
Exactly. So, I got into folklore because like even on my shows or like after my shows, people would come up to me and they say, hey, what you flowing, but you're not rap. What is that? And I start schooling them on, hey, this is what this is. This is what I am. And I started teaching in a folk tradition.
Right, actually. That's right.
LL Cool J, the rapper, said that when he was first doing rap music back in the days, because his first album came out in '85,
right.
But prior to that, he was rapping on the streets. He said he had to actually educate folks prior to his show and after his show about what he's doing. It's not singing, it's this. You know what I mean? And I felt the same way. Like I was, because I was just turning folks on to Gil Scott-Heron and Watts Prophets and Last Poets, and Saul Williams and
it's quite a few of them. I mean, even Amiri Baraka was a poet, right?
Yeah,
right. So, man, this is actually phenomenal. So because a lot of folklorists, white and black for that matter, and everybody in between that I speak to, whether it's in interview settings like this or just, we're having a coffee at the bar, we all kind of by default found folklore. It's like, never really led to it by someone, but it's like a calling. And when we kind of, did that make the journey better for you, that you kind of had to take this hero's journey to find folklore, or was it I don't want to say challenging, because I'm a believer in challenging makes things better, because you learn more, but talk to us about that hero's journey of kind of finding what it is that you were actually doing. So you were doing it before you had the name of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, pluses and minuses to it. The plus is, as you said, it does make you a little smarter, makes you like you appreciate it more because you struggled for it, Right. I can go off about that, man. Like, oh man. I think people who make their clothes appreciate their clothes. People who hunt for their food, they appreciate it. They don't waste. You know what I mean? So like I value, and like because of that, because of what I went through, and just being criticized by people who I respected with PhD degrees. You know what I mean? Like it takes courage. I ain't bragging on myself, but it takes a heck of a lot of courage to do the old thing. All these jazz musicians and blues musicians, people aren't into that much anymore. It takes courage to keep doing that. You know what I mean? And so it was it developed me. You know what I mean? It actually helped my stage presence better. Right. So that's the plus. The minus, though, would be the time. Had I have known earlier, before I had my gray hair, you know what I mean? I could have just really built on it quicker. Yes. You know what I mean? But quick isn't always good. And so like I'm looking forward to my folklore journey and where I like to take it. And the reason why I call myself a Folklife Poet, as opposed to a spoken word poet, is because I also write for the page. I'm not a page poet or a stage poet. It's as it comes to me. There are things in which I'll never perform. There's things that I will. And also the role of the poet, traditionally, like in tribal societies, the poet was the counselor, the lawyer, the librarian, the teacher. The poet was the only person that can go to the king or the chief and criticize them and not be beheaded. you know, and that and that's like in any society, you know, whether it's a King David in the Bible or whether it's the Celtics, the Irish, the Vikings, the African griots, you know, the Native American medicine men and shaman, and the stories that poets told at night by the campfire, you know what I mean? They were done in a poetic way, you know. And my point is that today in today's society, we still have that. It's just broken up into jobs. If you want to threaten somebody, what do you say? I'm gonna get my lawyer on you. What's the lawyer gonna do? Shoot you? No, the lawyer knows words. He knows the law. He knows how to go before the court. That frightens you. See words, the power of words, you know. At night, you watch the Jay Leno show or the Conan O'Brien show or Jimmy Kimmel, whatever shows, and they're telling jokes by the fire. The TV is a new fire. And those comedians are the new poets. You know what I mean? Bumper stickers. Everybody got bumper stickers on their car. In the old days, societies that had written languages, poetry was inscribed on things. You know, the Africans would inscribe it on their art. The Vikings would inscribe things on their horns. So poetry was meant to complement things. And we do that with our stickers and whatnot. So there's this whole human tradition, this whole, like we haven't gotten away from it. We just relabel it. And so I've always talked to people about that. And I say I'm a folklife poet because, you know, whenever whoever I meet, I'm telling them a story, or something. And that's why I love being a librarian, is because I don't have to grade papers. You know what I'm saying? Folks come, and so I grew up so I grew up in a pretty mixed neighborhood. You know, I always say there's culture and there's community. You know, culture. I always say, like, on my block, it was mostly blacks, Mexicans. I don't say Latinx because they didn't want to be called that. They said, no, we Mexicano. You know, when we watched the boxing matches, the Mexican was fighting the Puerto Rican. Everybody's rooting for the Mexican. I was rooting for the Puerto Rican. I didn't want to get drunk. but you know how it is. But but inside my house, it smelled like cornbread. You know, because I was raised with my grandparents. You know, that's what we ate. Inside my neighbor's house, it smelled like corn tamales. You know, but on the block, we all rode our bikes and skated together. So inside the house was culture. You know, on the block was community. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Influence, you know, and so, you know, I always just, bring that up. That in my African American community, like, I was around like African Americans in three places. Number one, my family. Right. Number two, the black barbershop. Definitely. Number three, I grew up in the black church, the AME church, you know. Okay. Right. So those three. Everywhere else, I was just around folks. Right. You know, Chinese, Mexicans, you know, whites, you know, you name it. And so sometimes we got along, sometimes not, but we was all together. You know what I mean? Right, yeah. So those three black cultural places helped influence me. And so, like, the black barbershop, you know, I noticed that, like, you know, if you're Catholic, you know, you confess your sins to the priest. If you're not Catholic and you're black, you confess your sins to the barber. The barber was like the counselor. He was like the fix-it man. He was cutting it, and people would just go to that barbershop, you know. And like, I went to a barbershop that my grandpa went to, so it was the old school kind. It wasn't like that movie Barbershop that Ice Cube made. Right. No, I went to the old school ones, you know. So, like, Joe Louis pictures was on the wall. Only jazz music was played. Right. I was the youngest one there. Old black dudes talk about fishing and, you know, playing cards and whatnot. And so my grandma would take me there, and she would sit in the car and I'd drop me off, and I'd be with this dudes, you know, waiting to get on and like listening to all that. And I realized the barber, that black barbershop, that barber, he was like a poet, because that's what the poet did. He was the community voice. And so, in my library here, I kind of run my department like a black barbershop. You know what I mean? Even though like everybody here is black, you know, it's that spirit of community, you know, where there's a story, you know, where there's counseling, where there's mentorship, and stereotypes get broken, you know, and you learn valuable life lessons outside the classroom, because school ain't gonna last forever, but learning should be lifelong. You know what I mean? And that's why I say I'm a Folklife Poet, because that's the role of the poet.
No, I dig it. I like that. I may have to change the name of this to Folklife Poet, because and you defined it really well. I want to ask you, before I get more specific into your band, as a librarian, right? Because one of the things we speak about a little in folklore, but more in ethnomusicology, which, and I guess cultural anthropology and all of the apologies that are kind of either hybrid or juxtaposed to our space, collections and archives.
Yes.
Do you work in those? And as a Black man of color that understands the difference between, that's another thing I love, the way you kind of broke between culture and community, right? Understanding these things and having a different eye when you're going through collections and having the archive. How does that work? Does it work? Does it mean anything?
Like how does my, or you're saying like, say, how does my my Blackness kind of apply to it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking.
All right, let me get into it. Sorry for the tissue because the air quality is bad out there.
No, it's okay.
So you may see me do this. Like I said, I'm 8 miles from it. You know,
well, just to remind you, with Brother Larry is in Southern California, 8 miles from where it's going down right now.
Shaka Khan through the fire. It is, man. Not Kanye West through the wire. No, it's Shaka Khan.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the deal. So I'm working on my archive. So when I got my master's in library science, I emphasized in archival studies.
Right.
And I'm still working on getting my archival my certified archival title. You know what I mean? There's this 100-question test you got to take. It's kind of like the archivist bar. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. And like I keep not passing it. You know, and you only take it once a year. So I'm in my third year now, so I'm gonna take it again. I ain't gonna give up. I'm gonna get my CA, you know, behind my name.
That's right.
But so here's the deal. We have this thing in archivy called archival silences. Mm-hmm. Okay, where it's like people have a story, people have things, but like traditional archives don't want to accept it for whatever. Oh, it's not like a part of the canon. It isn't, you know, important enough, or maybe we don't have enough room, and so people give up. And and what I believe on is like this importance of community archives, which is it's important to keep your own records, keep your own traditions, you know, and because not everybody's going to tell your story for you. The professionals aren't going to do it, but it's important for you to keep it. You know what I mean? And to learn preservation techniques and to learn value. Just because something's not of value to you right now, it may be value to you in a later season, or even in the seasons of your seeds. Right. You know, your children. So I'm working on like 3 projects right now in my day job. My day job is a librarian and archivist. So I'm doing the archiving for field hours for my certification. One project is I'm working on Henrietta Mears project. So, you know, for those that know Billy Graham, you know, Roy Rogers. So Henrietta Mears was like their Sunday school teacher. So, you know, she was a woman who influenced all these great men. She didn't really get all the credit. So her family had donated all of her like photos and journals and stuff to our library. So I just been digitizing them. That's all. And then we had some a documentary crew come out. And then they, you know, made a documentary about her using the stuff that we have. So preserving. So I've been working on that. My colleague, who's in the wall right behind mine, she's not here today because it's Saturday. You know, she's Japanese American descent. Her family was interned during the World War II in internment camps. What happened is that a lot of people from the university that I'm working at, they were pulled out. And sent to the camps.
Right.
And then when the camps was over with, it just killed their spirit. They ain't coming back. Right. You know, so years later, university started giving honorary degrees to the survivors and the families. And that librarian back there was instrumental in doing that. She's the one that raised the awareness of that. Because what was happening is that people was coming to her church saying, oh, you work at this school? My dad went here. And it started giving her photos. And she started realizing that, oh, dang, like, what? There's a whole history. And so she unearthed this whole history. Wow. So, you know, me being a person of color, she, you know, I sympathize with her and like we just, you know, trade ideas and whatnot. So I've been helping her with that, you know, off and on. And that and another issue is that like I'm an advisor for the Black Student Association here. You know, we don't have we don't have Black Student Union, Black Student Association. We
Right.
BSA. Different colleges have different, titles.
Right.
So using my archiving awareness and my care, I noticed that like we have this whole history of like previous Black student unions that have never gotten recorded. I mean, they're in the yearbook somewhere, but somewhere they're not. So I've been going around collecting and just digitizing photos and creating a whole database. And then that's becoming real helpful to the current students and also to some of the alumni. So, and that's something that is not sponsored by the university or the university archives, nothing. It's just something I just took on.
Right.
To be done. Being a comic book nerd as a kid, I would always take comic books and put them in little slips. I never thought in my mind I'm archiving. It's just like, and like that right there led me to libraries, led me to archives, just taking care of stuff, you know, and seeing the value in stuff that other people don't, because, my grandma didn't like comic books. She's going to throw them away. I was like, no, that's good, Right. My grandpa's Al Green album saying, oh, this is the devil. I was like, no, I went in the trash can and dug them out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that movie, Men of Honor. Is with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro.
Oh, my goodness. I can't remember. I know I just don't. I don't remember. I know I've seen it, but it's been some time.
Yeah. He plays the first Black Navy diver.
Right.
And you can look it up on YouTube. Robert De Niro plays the drill instructor. His name is Master Chief Billy Sunday. And he has this whole spiel about what a Navy diver is. And his first words are, a Navy diver is not a fighting man. He's a salvage expert. And he would be talking about how he just dig deep. And he was using like all this metaphorical language on what you do that they don't do. And he goes, hell, I don't know why anybody would want to be a Navy diver. But that's how I feel archivists are. That's how I feel folklorists are. Archiving is like is a technical work. Folklore is like the heart and spirit of it. You know what I mean? And they both intersect. So even so, it's like poetry led me to folklore. Folklore led me to archiving. Comic book was before it all. You know what I mean? It all intersects. It's all a
thread.
And when I sit back and I think about all that, it just gives me confidence that my life has purpose. When you just take the time out and just be quiet and think about like how all the weird things come together in your life, you start, oh man, I can't be wasting time.
Right. So now you've been your group has been performing for band how long?
Since April 24th, 1997. Now it's not consistently because we've definitely had breaks. Obviously, in the pandemic, we haven't done anything. We've been doing we just been jamming now, but we want to get back in. And I got so many new poems and so many things to write since the pandemic. Because I was out protesting. This little picture behind me is my little collage I made.
Wow! So talk to us about the protesting and that. We can't leave that out.
Oh, so I hope to one day get a PhD. I want to build off of what my master's thesis was.
Okay.
When you speak a poem, the air become the page. I want to build off of this theme of being a folklife poet and this theme about how poets challenge the king or the chief, through language and whatnot. And so I went to 20. I only went to 27 protests in LA. I say only.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Only.
No. There's folks going out there like, a lot of people because a lot of people were furloughed off their job. I was furloughed off my job, but I was also an essential worker. So a lot of things, so I had time,
Right.
The thing is that I just went with a journal. Okay. And because I had issues with the police in these neighborhoods, mostly not so much the local police, but the LA County Sheriff.
Okay.
Sheriff are a little bit more aggressive than local police. Local police it depends on city by city.
Okay.
But the sheriffs were always aggressive because a lot of them, they train in the prisons. And so they come, and prison is racist. And so they come with that racist mentality.
Right.
I've always complied, as they say. That's why they never shot me. I never ran. They never shot me. But the things they did to me that I had to take, the humiliation.
Right. Right.
And I would make them mad by complying because they just wanted to bust, they just leave me alone, and like things like that, sitting on curbs, being thrown against hot cars, all because some neighborhood watch. I'm running, I'm just jogging. officer, I look like a jogger. I'm training for a marathon. You know what I mean? Things like that, you know?
So wait, is that Castello? You had an experience, I don't remember the young man's name who was jogging through an area, but you had an experience to where you were jogging through your community and you was approached by officers?
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time. Wow. You know, and they would say the word black. Yeah, a black guy robbed a store, a black guy. And so I would always be like, oh, officer, what was the black guy wearing? And they would look, because they're not used to, like, they want me to be like, why you gotta stop a brother? Huh? I don't talk like that. I ask them questions. And their faces turn red. See, I love white people because they're like mood rings. They turn red and purple. You know, I know what you're thinking. I can't read your mind, but I can read your blush. You know what I mean? Like, and so, like, they would get mad, like, oh, this guy's smart. Like, you know, yeah, I'm smart. I'm a librarian. I know. You know, they grab me. They're I want to see your ID. They go inside my pocket and take my wallet out.
Wow.
You know? And I knew that I let them do that so many times until I talked to a librarian. And I was like, you know what? Why do they keep doing this to me? He's like, wow. We know, Larry, legally they have to pat you down. And he showed me all this stuff in the library about what my rights are. I'm like, I can't believe they're like breaking all this.
Right.
A lot of cops don't know the law, but then a lot do. You know what I mean? Like, lawyers have to go to law school and pass the bar to become a lawyer to interpret the law. Judges have to do the same thing to judge the law. Cops, this is all you need is a high school diploma and like pass the police academy. And
Right.
Police the law. You know, I'm like, wait a minute. So I started coming at them, you know, and like talk about African-American folklore, man. I'm like the walking Brer Rabbit, man. I'm like outsmarting Brer Foxy and Brer, you know, and that make them mad to leave me alone. But like, the fact that I had to go through all that. And so that's what led me to the protest. Because like I filed a formal complaint, they ignored me. You know, I went higher up, they ignored me. So when everybody started taking to the streets and bringing to attention, I was like, you know what, I'm going to join because. And so, like, I made a protest sign. I keep it here. I'll show it to you. But the thing is that I did that, the protest, but also just to absorb what was going on. And I kept a diary. And what I noticed is that, like, a lot of poetry was happening. People were dropping a knee for 9 minutes, and that's performance poetry. Right. People were chanting. That's the spoken word. The written word was the signs, you know what I mean? All this was folk, you know, and I'm like, hey, and they're challenging the system, you know, and I'm like, wow, they dress up. And I'm like, this is what I had been doing my performance poetry master's thesis on. It's just that everybody's a poet now, as opposed to just one griot doing it. Right. You know what I mean? And so like, I just like started writing about that. I was like, okay, I gotta like turn this into a book. And so, you know, I'm finishing up my first draft called Tour Duty. Nice. And I want to use part of that for my one-day future PhD degree. I'm thinking of titles for my dissertation. Maybe the poetry of protest, as opposed to protest poetry. Right. So many people have written protest poems about police abuse, but nothing changed. But as soon as people took to the street and perform the poetry through chant and sign in mass. I mean, we got laws that have been changed now, you know, I mean, and it even affected other communities because LA, you know, a lot of the Latinos in LA, they got involved and they were bringing up situations. The Asian hate was going on. They started bringing it. So I would go to their protests too, just as an ally and learn from them, you know. So I call it Tour of Duty because, you know, I respect our military, you know, we talk about, you know, military fight for our freedom, but I say, you know what, freedom alone ain't everything, man. Freedom can become the golden calf. You need freedom, justice, and equality. Rock, paper, scissors working together. Because you can be free to bully. You know what I mean? It's activists that have fought for justice and equality. No military ever stopped the Ku Klux Klan from burning down churches. You know what I mean? Right. Activists did that. The fact that we have handicapped parking, activists did it. The founding fathers wasn't thinking about that. Braille, you know, service animals, activists did that. You know what I mean? You know, and so just like we have Veterans Day, Memorial Day, we should have AAA Day for activists, advocates, and allies. Why? You know what I mean? And so I wrote about all that, you know. in AAA day, and so I called it a tour of duty because all the marches I did, and I was like, you know what, I'm a veteran of the 2020 LA protests, and so I've written a lot of poems about that. I protested with Black Lives Matter. I protested with other groups, a group called Active Advocates, city hall sessions, community control of the police. These war, whites against racism.
Okay.
WP for BL, white people for Black Lives.
Wow,
I mean, they were like the allies that were in association. There were so many groups. Many of them have disbanded. Some of them weren't, but these groups that had formed, it was very folk in that they come from like. What I love about this little collage is that there was actually flyers. People were like going to like a music concert where it's like you go to a concert and somebody handing a flyer to another one.
Right.
I'm like people have protest flyers, and so I saved that. That's in the archive world. That's called ephemera. You know what I mean? You want to save the stuff that wasn't meant to last. That's going to be thrown away. No, we're salvage expert. Dig in that trash and get it.
That's right. Yes.
That's a piece of history right there. So I'm very passionate about that. I always say the difference between a hoarder and an archivist is that both of them collect.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But an archivist will collect, organize, and preserve. A hoarder will just collect.
Right.
And don't preserve.
Right.
So, and minimalists don't understand that.
Well, no, and I mean, you know what? We're going to talk soon because I would like to start putting together even online workshops for just the laypersons who have collections or they like collecting stuff, but they need to have like what I call data management.
Yes.
Right. Because my brain, if you look at my archive, if you will, my hard drives, it functions like my brain. No one could find anything. So it's like the way I look at it, and tell me if I'm wrong, because you're an archivist, you want to be able to present it or file it so that people outside of your brain can operate in the space. Is this what we're talking about?
Yes. And even, yes. So I always say this, archivists and librarians do that with published works. Archivists do that with unpublished works. The stuff that didn't make the cut.
Right.
Because publishing is an industry. There's so much riches out there that don't make the cut because it wasn't published, not because it wasn't good, but because the editors didn't decide. They still have a value. But having to organize and manage it for use. Right. That's important, Yes.
Man, I dig it. So, it's not even really necessary to say because we can see this, but just for young and even, so one of the missions of the African American Folklorist and Jack Dapper Blues, which is African American Folklorist is a leg of that, is to I don't say give face. That sounds so arrogant, but at least introduce or encourage these professions that people in our community actually do anyway, but don't know that it could be a viable a profession or career.
Yes.
Do you have any words for people that are like doing this, but like, hey, if you want to, start getting a job or taking this path, this is kind of how you can do it?
I would just say just understand that like nothing's new and that there's people doing it. You just it's just finding out who is doing it and building up on it. So the topic of community archives and archival silence, get familiar with those terms and with that, read all the literature and YouTube videos, whatever. Can't leave off of YouTube, but like go to like community colleges where they're having these sessions or discussions and topic, and just listen and sit and think and examine your life to see where in your life are you already doing that. You know what I mean? nets and start networking. There is African American archivist networks out there. They're all small. I think I sent you a link saying that there's only like 600 African American male librarians in the country.
Yes.
You know, that was a 2008 study. I don't know what it is now, but when I got my degree, I always said I'm number 601. but we're small, but we're of value, you know. And so there's other groups outside of African Americans that are working. I know that the indigenous people, the indigenous communities, the Native Americans are very much into like learning about archivy so that they can preserve, you know, their customs.
Yep.
So it's good to network with, again, culture and community. If you're outside your culture, go to your community, you know, your community of physical people around you and form communities, you know, and learn that it's there.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's something I have to ask you so to have a clear distinction. Are you a folklorist or are you a librarian / archivist that functions as in the folklorist space? How do you describe yourself and your work if you were to title it?
Yeah, so I have an angel on my shoulder and a devil on my shoulder. The angel's telling me you're a folklorist, and the devil says, no, you don't have a PhD in folklore. You don't teach folklore classes. Nobody funds you. The field work that you do, it's not for a museum. The field work that you do is like sporadic. Maybe you're an armchair folklorist. You know what I mean? And that's why I just say I'm a folklife poet, because like I perform, I'm an artist, but I educate. And a lot of what I educate people on is folklore and archivy, and I do archivy. So if we expand what the idea of what a folklorist is, if we clarify what that is, I may fit in. If not, no problem. But I have a heart for it. You know, I read folklore dictionaries for fun.
Right, so, right.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's why. So put it this way: we say folklore and we say folk life. Right. Here's a word that I've been playing around with because I'm a poet and I love like coining terms and playing words. It's folk consciousness. Now that's a word that exists in the psychology realm. You know, about how human beings interact with their, society.
Right.
But for me, folk consciousness is just the awareness,
right,
or the impact of how folk,
right,
impact society, impacts your life, you know. And when I say folk, I mean like not just the people, but the synergy of the people, you know, where the where the sum of the parts creates a whole greater than it,
right?
You know, and so you don't have to be a folklorist to have folk consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am not a folklorist, and again, I wrestle with that because of the angel and the devil, I know that I have that folk consciousness, you know. So that's why I say I'm a folklife poet with folk life, with folk consciousness. You know, you could be a plumber and just have folk consciousness. You know what I mean?
That is very true.
You know, so as a profession, I am a librarian, you know, who's an archivist. I don't teach folklore. You know, I go to the conferences, I go to the lectures, I talk to professors, I learn from them, you know, sit in the classes, you know, read, you know, I school people on where to go, you know, but there's an intersection between, as a librarian, you know, you are a connector, you know, long before Siri and Google Maps, when you got lost, you went to the gas station and the gas station attendant would direct you. Why? Because everybody came to the gas station. They knew where everything was. You know what I mean? That's just what I am, you know? So
yes. Well, no, I mean, as usual, well, I don't usually say folk of color, melanated, I've taken to because Black has multiple definitions, positive, negative, though I say Black. All of these words are kind of interchangeable for me for several reasons, but this is not about me, this is about you. However, what my point is, yet again, we have a Black folklorists redefining the space and doing it in a way. The disruption is not for tearing down, but for showing what is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And this is what I dig. And so I appreciate chopping it up, man. Look, is there anything that you thought, anticipated, or hoped I would ask that I did not?
Oh no. I run my mouth so much, so I just hope I covered as much as I can. I just hope people, get enlightened from this just conversations, because conversation is folk life,
Right.
and that again, I'm an academic, but I'm not an academic. I'm academic because I work in an academic library, but I'm not a professor. You know what I mean? I assist professors. And so I just want people just to, again, meditate on what that means. Folk consciousness. You don't have to be a folklorist to have folk consciousness, and for having folk consciousness should precede it all. And for everybody who's had the same struggle as me, trying to work their way to folklore studies and they didn't know they were never redirected, you just know you're not alone. And I hope that this talk would at least inspire people, or inspire those professors to redirect those students to folklore. And I just want to say this though, that like in this age of diversity, equity, inclusion, like we hear this term, and it gets pretty politicized because you got people on one political side supporting it, people on one political side critiquing it or trying to tear it down. Even the fires, they're blaming the fires on DEI.
Right.
In LA, because we had the first first African American female mayor of LA.
Right.
We had the first female fire chief who's actually LGBT.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And they're blaming it on that. They're not qualified. I was like, what? They're blaming it. And my point is that, these terms, DEI, whatever, diversity, folklorists, people with folk consciousness, long before those terms were even used, we're studying other cultures. We're learning about people. We use this to unite humanity, to learn from ourselves. You know what I mean? The reason why I say there's a difference between culture and community, that folk consciousness, I picked it up. And so, at the end of the day, we all share this planet. We're all neighbors in some way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so folklore more than ever, now more than ever, is needed. So when all these places are closing down the folklore programs, it's like, no, folklore is a great way to study diversity, equity, inclusion without it being politicized so much.
Right. Right. Keep it one for humanities.
Exactly. And now there've always been racist anthropologists.
Absolutely.
Racist we know about that.
Yeah.
The principle of it all. It has always been.
Well, now remember, those racist anthropologists and folklorists and musicologists is what caused that devil on your shoulder telling you what they're telling you, because that was their theology and ideology and buffoonery, if you will.
All right, I gotta kick him out.
Yeah. We do not subscribe to that pseudoscience. Yeah. So, Brother Larry, I appreciate you, bro. We're gonna get you back on here, and tell the people where they can find. Do you have any shows coming up, or should they just check out your website?
You can check out our website. We have nothing coming up right now. I'm planning on something. Man, after my next marathon, which is LA Marathon, I'm gonna start doing more things, and from spring, summer on. I'm just training for this here, marathon thing in March. But I'm gonna be putting up. I'm putting up the final touches on my tour of duty essay.
Yes, sir.
And then I'll be submitting that to journals. I'm gonna get rejected, but if I get published anywhere, definitely gonna let you know. Have people go look at that.
Absolutely. And anytime you want to write for the magazine or the website, you have open call. Just let me know what you want to do.
Okay. Hey, you ain't seen me then. Yeah. I love what you're doing. This is very important. Thank you so much. And I love blues people. That's what we are.
That's
I know
what we are.
Amiri Baraka talked about that.
Amiri Baraka is one of my three kings when it comes to my scholarship.
I got what I got here? Transbluency. I got that one.
Yes.
I got it. Yeah,
my man.
So yeah, man. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good folks, you know what to do. Subscribe, become a member of the African American Folklorist. We want to give you all that information down there. And stay awake, stay aware, preserve your own story.